Here are my 10 tips for ICM photography. The first one is image quality means nothing. So what do I mean by that? You could either use a camera or you can use your phone. The image quality really does not matter. That's basically good news for people who feel like they have to buy the most recent camera. You actually don't. With ICM photography, because you're shaking your camera, image quality really means nothing. You can use old cameras, new cameras, iPhones, doesn't matter. The next tip is I use a 1-second shutter. Anything else just supports that. So what I mean is your f-stop or your ISO, doesn't matter what those are. If it needs to be f-stop 32 or if it needs to be ISO 1600 versus 100, doesn't matter. What matters is the 1-second shutter speed. So let me give you an example. I'm going to use my iPhone here. And with my iPhone, because the shutter speed is actually hard to manipulate on the iPhone, I think it's easier to do it on Android. There's an app called Spectra that I use, and I don't remember if it's free or not. I think it's free. I've had this for a while, so I may have paid for it. But basically, with this app, you can manipulate the shutter speed really easily. So basically, it has it down here. You just say 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 9 seconds, doesn't matter, 15. Usually, I'll just put it on the longest one because when I tap the circle, it'll stop the shutter. So it doesn't really matter what it's set to. And then you just kind of line up your frame. So like this, let's say I just want to take a photo of this porch here, and I'm going to use my side buttons to start and stop it. So there we go. We see that it's starting. See the green dot there kind of moving along, and then you kind of shake it. Now I waited too long, so let me do that again. All right, here we go. Get it? And then you just kind of shake it a little bit, and then when you get it to where you want it, then you stop it. And let's see what the photo turned out. Cool. Now, if I were to use a camera, so obviously using a camera here that doesn't have an app where I can do something like that. So instead, what I do is I use an ND filter. So this camera is my favorite camera to do ICM photography. I mentioned it a lot on some of my other videos. The Sony RX100. This one's the Mark 7, but it doesn't matter if you have the 7 or 3 or whatever. But in order to get this to work great on the daytime, I've had to put on a ND filter. So in order to get an ND filter on this particular camera, there's a kit that I bought. I forget what the name of it is. If you're interested in it, let me know in the comments, and then I'll put the name in the comments. But if you could see, I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's a little lip here that the kit comes with that you kind of glue it on. And then when you glue that on, you're able to get an ND filter and just kind of like attach it. So that's what I do. So this one is a variable ND filter where you can go from 1 to 10. So if you see here, the variable ND filter, you can kind of twist it and it'll get darker or lighter depending on what you want. But if I were to do this again, to be honest, I wouldn't buy this variable ND filter anymore. I would just buy the 10 stop because every time I use this, it's always at the max. I think the variable ND filter is actually more expensive than if you were to just buy a regular 10 stop ND filter. So just keep that in mind, you don't need a variable one. So like on this camera here, so I have my shutter speed at 1 second. I've got my f-stop at 3.5. I've got my variable ND set at the max, and then my ISO is at 100. And that's basically my settings here, and then I'm just going to just line it up here again with the porch here, and then just shake my camera. And sometimes I'll shake it right away when I click the button, the shutter button, and sometimes I'll wait like half a second before I shake it. I try it all just to see what kind of photos I can get. Which basically brings me to the next tip, which is to take as many photos as you can. Spend a lot of time on one image. It's normal for me to spend at least, I don't know, I could spend 5 minutes up to 10 minutes sometimes just taking photos of the same thing and just shaking the camera, because I know like I'm gonna get a lot of crap photos and it's gonna take a lot of photos for me to get one good one that I like. And so I spend a lot of time just shaking the camera and taking photos. With that, I use JPEG. So instead of using RAW, and this is really just gonna be a blurry mess anyway, so JPEG works really well to save up on image space. And then the next tip I have is the wider you are, the more you have to shake it. The closer in you are, the less you have to shake it. So for example, this right here, and you see like I'm kind of shaking it a lot. However, if I were to zoom in, because this one is a 200, it's like 24 to 200, I believe. So if I zoom in, well now I don't need to shake that much. Let me find a better subject. Okay, here we go. So there's people out there. Now I don't need to shake it that much because I'm zoomed in. When you're zoomed in this far, any slight movement is exaggerated even more. So that's why you don't have to zoom, you don't have to shake it as much when you are at a longer focal length than if you're at a wider focal length. You'll have to zoom in. I mean, you'll have to shake it more. So the next tip is to shake it, pull it, push it, do whatever you can, do everything. So for example here, I'm gonna shake it. Now I'm gonna twist it. And then I'm gonna kind of pull it. Do as much as you can. The goal is to get as many photos in different variations as you can, because it's gonna take a lot of photos to get one that you actually like. Twist it immediately when you hit the shutter button, like this. You do it fast, do it slow, or sometimes wait like half a second and then twist it. Each one will give you different results. Okay, so the next tip here is I do like to overexpose sometimes. I think it gives it a cool contrast of light and dark when you overexpose the sky and all that stuff. A lot of people, you know, they want to get their exposure right. With ICM photography, I overexpose it. I like having bright white with dark blacks. And so, for example here, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm overexposing where the sky is pretty blown out and you got the trees. And we'll see what this looks like. And then the next tip is black and white sometimes makes it look better. What I've found is that, like with ICM photography, when you shake the camera, you know, some of the effects of ICM photography, it kind of reduces when you make it black and white. I don't know how else to explain it, but I know with like when I have people in the photos, sometimes the people, it makes it look like they have 2 heads or 3 heads or 4 heads. When you make it black and white, that kind of goes away and it focuses a little bit more on just the subject. So making something black and white is a really good idea. And the next tip is to make it a square crop. What I found is that with ICM photography, a square crop actually makes the photo look better a lot of the times. All right, and the next tip is to have people in them. I found that a lot of my ICM photography looks a lot better when there's an identifiable like human in it. So I'm gonna try to do that here. I'm at a park. Hopefully I can get some people in it. Let's see if I can get a good one. There's some people way down there, so I'm zoomed in. They're doing some art. Looks like they're painting a portrait of a person sitting on a chair. Alright, here are the 4 photos to vote on. Do you like photo number 1 with the guy holding an umbrella? Or photo number 2 with the ghostly yellow house? Or photo number 3, a lake and trees fading into nothing? Or photo number 4, the guy on a bike? Vote by leaving a comment below. Thanks for watching.